I never really had a single that carried an album. Most of the time there wasn't one at all. If something ever broke through and reached people, it felt accidental. He once let his band go right in the middle of a tour. He turned away from massive paydays. He released albums nobody was asking for and never felt the need to explain them. For more than 5 decades, Neil Young has stood as one of music's most uncompromising voices. Not the loudest, not the smoothest, but the most honest. He never chased what was popular. He never softened his edges. He followed instinct even when it led him far from the spotlight. Beneath that raw, weathered voice lived someone obsessed with purity, someone chasing records that never bent, never folded, never apologized. These weren't just favorites. They were untouchable. They shaped the artist who refused to give in. When Bob Dylan released Bringing It All Back Home, it wasn't just an album, it was permission to evolve. When Dylan plugged in, many saw betrayal. Neil Young saw courage. One side crackled with electricity, the other stayed rooted in acoustic storytelling. Dylan wasn't choosing a lane, he was claiming all of them. Watching that unfold taught Neil a lesson he never forgot. Growth costs something. Sometimes it costs fans, but standing still costs more. The songs tumbled forward with restless energy and quiet reflection side by side. That restlessness wasn't confusion, it was truth. Later, when Neil shifted sounds again and again, he was following that same blueprint. Never freeze, never explain yourself. Change isn't disloyalty, it's survival. From Hank Williams came another lesson. These weren't songs dressed up to impress. They were confessions, simple structures carrying heavy emotion. No decoration, no disguise. Neil heard that and recognized himself. Pain didn't need polish. 3 chords and honesty could carry more weight than anything fancy. Hank's voice lingered long after he was gone, fragile and unforgettable. When Neil sang about loss, distance, and roads that led nowhere, that spirit was there. Vulnerability wasn't weakness, it was power. Then there was Kind of Blue, an album that taught him silence mattered as much as sound. Miles Davis didn't rush. He let notes hang in the air until they meant something. The music moved slowly, deliberately, like mist rolling in. Neil heard restraint and realized how powerful it could be. Not speed, not volume, space. That patience shaped his guitar work for years, long tones, unhurried phrases. The understanding that what you leave out can say more than what you play. When Rubber Soul arrived, pop music grew up. The Beatles stopped pretending everything was simple. The songs became reflective, searching, human. They weren't performing characters anymore. They were asking real questions. Neil saw that you could be widely loved and still be deep. Success and substance didn't cancel each other out. The softer sound, the personal lyrics, the sense of conversation rather than spectacle all stayed with him. It showed him that trusting your audience mattered. Joni Mitchell's Blue went even further. There was no armor on that record. Every song felt exposed, honest to the point of discomfort. Neil recognized that fearlessness immediately. She didn't write from a distance. She wrote from the center of feeling. Nothing was hidden. Nothing was protected. That kind of openness took immense courage. Neil followed that path in his own work, stripping things back, removing safety nets, letting emotion lead instead of polish. Music from Big Pink shifted everything again. While others chased studio tricks, this record sounded grounded and human, timeless but new. The songs breathed. The playing served the stories, not the ego. That simplicity hit Neil hard. No gimmicks, just feel, harmony, and trust. It proved that looking back could move music forward, and that roots could still be revolutionary. Exile on Main Street showed him something else entirely. Beautiful disorder, tracks that felt loose, imperfect, alive, nothing overly cleaned up. Mistakes weren't erased, they were embraced. Neil understood that too much control could drain the spirit right out of a recording. Sometimes the magic happens when things are allowed to be rough. When instinct leads instead of precision. Everybody knows this is nowhere marked the moment Neil found his people. Crazy Horse didn't play tight. They played honest. The songs stretched because they needed to. Nothing rushed, nothing calculated. The connection wasn't about skill. It was about trust. They weren't trying to impress anyone. They were chasing feeling. Together, They proved that the right collaborators don't just make you better, they make you bolder. Bert Jansch's work showed Neil how quiet music could still carry immense weight. The playing was intricate but never flashy. The mood was reflective, shadowed, deeply human. It revealed that an acoustic guitar didn't need cheerfulness or grand statements. It could simply tell the truth. That influence stayed with Neil across every stripped-down moment of his career, and then there was a love supreme. Not an album made for applause, but for purpose. John Coltrane wasn't performing. He was reaching. Every note carried intention. No safety, no compromise. It wasn't about pleasing anyone. It was about answering a calling. Neil heard that and understood something fundamental. True art demands surrender. You follow the vision, even when it leads you somewhere lonely. Especially then. Those records taught Neil Young that comfort is the enemy of honesty, that safety dulls the search. He never chased perfection, he chased truth, not to own it, but to honor it, integrity over ease, growth over stagnation, listening over approval, and that mindset didn't stay locked inside the records he loved. It shaped every decision he made afterward, every risk he took, every time he chose uncertainty over familiarity. As his career unfolded, Neil kept proving that the point was never arrival, it was movement. When audiences expected him to repeat himself, he shifted direction. When critics demanded clarity, he offered mystery. When success tempted him to settle, he leaned into discomfort. That wasn't stubbornness, it was discipline. A refusal to let momentum turn into a cage. What made Neil different wasn't that he ignored feedback, was that he filtered it through instinct instead of fear. Applause never became a compass. Silence never became a threat. He understood that external validation fades quickly, but internal compromise lingers. Once you betray your own sense of truth, no amount of approval can make you whole again. That lesson echoed from every album that shaped him, from the courage to evolve without permission, from the willingness to let songs breathe instead of forcing them to impress. From the acceptance that imperfection can carry more life than polish. From the understanding that vulnerability is not exposure for attention, but openness in service of honesty. Neil carried that forward into how he recorded. Many of his most powerful moments happened not because everything went right, but because he let things happen naturally. Microphones caught rough edges, voices cracked, guitars fed back, tempos wavered. Instead of correcting those moments, he trusted them. He believed feeling mattered more than control. That belief ran against industry logic, but it aligned perfectly with human experience. Listeners felt that difference, even if they couldn't explain it. The music didn't sound manufactured, it sounded lived in, like something that existed before the tape rolled and would exist long after it stopped. That timeless quality came not from technique alone, but from intention. Neil wasn't trying to freeze a moment. He was trying to tell the truth about it. Over time, that approach built a strange kind of trust between him and his audience. Not because they always liked what he released, but because they believed him. They knew whatever came next would be real. It might confuse them. It might challenge them. It might even push them away for a while. But it would never feel hollow. That trust is rare. Most artists chase consistency because it feels safe. Neil chased alignment. If his inner compass pointed somewhere unfamiliar, he followed it without apology. He accepted that some people would leave along the way. He also knew the ones who stayed would be there for the right reasons. His influence spread quietly through generations of musicians who saw in him a different model of success. Not charts or trophies, but longevity without surrender. A career built not on chasing moments, but honoring them. Artists across genres took note. They didn't copy his sound. They studied his courage. They learned that reinvention doesn't require spectacle. Sometimes it's as simple as trusting your instincts when they whisper instead of shout. They learned that restraint can be as powerful as volume, that silence can speak. That repetition dulls meaning, but risk sharpens it. Neil's story also challenged the myth that progress is linear. His career moved in cycles, detours, and contradictions. Loud followed quiet. Precision gave way to chaos. Accessibility gave way to experimentation. None of it was random. It reflected a belief that art should respond to the moment it's created in, not the expectations built around it. That belief resonates beyond music. It speaks to anyone trying to create honestly in a world obsessed with outcomes. It's a reminder that growth often looks like uncertainty before it looks like clarity. That discomfort isn't a sign you're lost. Sometimes it's proof you're paying attention. Neil never framed his choices as heroic. He didn't romanticize struggle or position himself as above criticism. He simply refused to let fear dictate direction. When something stopped feeling true, he moved on. When something felt urgent, he followed it, regardless of consequence. That philosophy is why his work continues to feel alive, not preserved behind glass, but breathing. Each album exists as a snapshot of where he was, not where he thought he should be. That honesty creates connection across time. New listeners hear it not as nostalgia, but as presence. Even now, long after many of his influences have passed into legend, the lesson remains current. The search never ends. Comfort will always try to convince you to stop. Approval will always tempt you to settle. But truth requires motion. It asks you to listen closely, not just to the world, but to yourself. Neil Young's career is proof that you don't need to win every moment to build something lasting. You need to stay aligned. You need to protect the part of yourself that knows when something feels right, even if it's inconvenient. Especially if it's inconvenient. That's what those records ultimately taught him. Not how to sound, but how to listen. Not how to succeed, but how to stay honest. Not how to be remembered, but how to remain alive creatively. And that's why his journey still matters. Not because it offers a formula, but because it refuses one. It reminds us that art isn't about reaching a destination. It's about honoring the search. About choosing integrity when ease is available. About trusting that the quiet inner voice knows more than the noise around it. If this journey through the influences that shaped Neil Young resonated with you, subscribe for more stories about artists who refuse to bend. Keep searching. Keep listening.